All right. Welcome back to the Behind the Back podcast post-game edition, playoff edition for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm coming to you off of a 22-10 victory against the Green Bay Packers at home in the Wildcard round. The Eagles took care of business, and I'm recording after the Bucs Commanders game because I wanted to get a feel for how next week is going to look before previewing the game with Ben this week. And it looks like the Commanders just stunned the Bucs on the road off of a doink field goal to win the game. So the Commanders will be moving on to face the Lions in the second round. So we'll talk about the Eagles' next matchup here in a second, but I want to talk about the game. And overall, it was ugly. I'm happy we got the win, but definitely a lot needs to be cleaned up. There's definitely things that this team needs to address. I do think there's some rust that clearly needed to be shaken off. And that's also why I'm also, I there's not as much concern. I don't feel that much concern. I think that there's plenty for this team to work on. We can definitely, especially on the offensive side. But the defense stood its ground, did what it does best, and held this Green Bay Packers offense to 10 points. And this game was ugly. This game was ugly from start to finish. It started with an Oren Burks forced fumble on the kickoff, which really set the tone for the rest of the game. And this game was stuck at 10-0 for the longest time before Green Bay was finally able to make a run in the third quarter to kind of get things going. But overall, I love the defensive physicality in this game. They forced Jordan Love into having a very, very bad game. He finished today 20 of 33, 212 yards, 3 interceptions, and Jordan Love just did not look great at any point of the game today. I think that the Eagles are doing a good job generating pressure. Nolan Smith finishes with 2 sacks in this game, and he was the youngest player in franchise history to record multiple sacks in a playoff game. So shout out to Nolan Smith for doing his job. But Jalen Carter, Moro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, the interior of the defensive line was really just taking advantage of the injuries that were happening to the Packers throughout the game. So the Packers, man, they were fighting an uphill battle from the jump. And that's exactly what you have to do if you're the home team. You generate a lead, play from ahead, let the defense do what it does best, and just get after the quarterback and slow down this rushing attack. Josh Jacobs had a big 32-yard run, a touchdown run late in the third to really kind of get things going for Green Bay. But I mean, he finished with 81 yards on 18 carries, only 4.5 yards to carry. The Eagles defense stood up. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and they really made up for what really was a lackluster offensive performance. And listen, we talked about it during the week. I mentioned it. I was like, listen, Jalen Hurts does not have to play a perfect game to win this game. We just needed to limit turnovers, win the turnover battle, and we'll most likely win this game. And we won it 4-0. Really didn't give them much of a chance at all. It was self-inflicted wounds by the Packers. Guys, with the injuries coming in and out, they were by the end of the game, they were down their top 3 receivers. They were down 2 interior offensive linemen, and defensive players were falling down too. And with Quay Walker getting hurt at the end too. It really felt like, especially the last 5 minutes of this game, that Packers players would either get hurt or there was a penalty, and it was ugly, and it took a really long time. This game kind of felt it was kind of dragging on, and it really felt like the Packers needed to be put out of their misery by the end of it. But when I talk about the Eagles offense, Jalen Hurts finishes 13 to 21, 131 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had that early touchdown off of the forced fumble on the kickoff to Jahan Dotson, who gets his first touchdown as an Eagle. Um, Jalen, I think with this game, it took, like most games this season, it felt like it took him a long time to kind of get in the rhythm. But he made some good plays in this game. I think the audible touchdown to Dallas Goedert, which Dallas Goedert, big Boyd, I think it was Kerry Valentine all the way to the end zone for about 20 yards, was a very good highlight play. I was hyped when that happened. That gave the Eagles a 16-3 lead at the time before Josh Jacobs made it 16-10. And then the Eagles were able to sustain a couple drives and put a few field goals up on the board to finish the game. But overall, it felt like every time the Packers offense was trying to do something, the Eagles defense just shut them down or forced a turnover. And then it helped when the Eagles offense was struggling. And that's been the case so many times this year, is this defense has helped and saved this offense when they have struggled. But I also think that, like I said, plenty of room for improvement. This isn't exactly the kind of offensive showing that's going to make it to the Super Bowl, and it's going to have to be a lot better moving forward. I mean, when A.J. Brown only has 1 catch for 10 yards, you kind of have to do a little, you're going to have to go into the playbook later in the week and just kind of figure out what kind of easy buttons can we press next week. But I do think when it comes to these matchups that we're going to be facing, I do think in terms of the skill level, the Packers defense has been one of the most consistent defenses all year. They're one of the few teams that were top 5 in offense and top 5 in defense, and that's one of those things that this might be, in terms of overall team, one of the toughest opponents we play going into the next few rounds. So when we talk about the next few rounds, like the next round that we're going to be playing, it's going to be, now that the Bucs have lost and the Commanders have won, the Eagles will play the winner of the Minnesota and LA Rams game tomorrow on Monday, and it's going to be huge. I think another thing this does is the fact that the Commanders won. It gives the Eagles an extra day of rest because they played on Sunday. This game is tomorrow, and then they will play on Sunday, which is huge. So we're getting a Sunday to Sunday schedule versus a Sunday to Saturday, and we get an extra day rest advantage on this tomorrow's game. So we'll see what happens, who we end up playing. Me personally, I hope the Rams come out with a win in this one, but given all the destruction and stuff that's happening in LA with the fires, players having to evacuate themselves and their families, I'm sure they're exhausted. Things are going to be different. It's going to be a completely different game, and that's definitely going to be the story going into the game, is going to be about the fires and the players and the coaches affected. So Minnesota, I think, will have an edge in this one, but I'm confident against either team. Jalen Hurts has done a good job against both of these teams, and the Eagles obviously beat the Rams earlier this year. We haven't faced this new look Vikings team with Sam Darnold, so it'll be interesting to see who we end up matching up with, but I'm confident against either one of these teams. I'm really excited to play either one of these teams because I think our defense is going to be good enough to get the job done, at least until we face the Lions. When we face the Lions, we need to play, if we end up facing the Lions, we need to play a complete game from top to bottom. But the offense, this was an acceptable win. The offense played, they just did what they needed to do to win the game. They stalled out a bunch, but they didn't turn the ball over, and the defense really just took care of business. So overall, I'm not mad at this win. Obviously, it's a playoff win. You do what you need to do to get the job done. And the Eagles showed that they can keep up with anybody, especially with their physicality. And the Eagles have done so well this year setting the tone. And we were able to set the tone from the jump, and we play another game at home. So I'm excited because it helps. Not only do we get the extra day of rest, but whoever wins from this game is having to come from the West Coast to come all the way to us. So it's going to be we're going to have an advantage going into this week, and it's huge because I understand, like, the Bucs have been up and down this year, but they were a team that's had our number for the past couple of years. So the Commanders taking care of business really helps us out. It really kind of lines up the path, in my opinion, a little bit more. So that was kind of the matchup I was hoping. That was kind of the lineup I was hoping would happen. So shout out to the Commanders for helping us out a little bit and giving us an extra day of preparation, a little extra day of rest. They played a good game. It was an awesome game. The best game of the Wildcard weekend, because most of these games were kind of stinkers, and the Eagles game was no exception, in the sense of, yeah, it was close for a little while there, but man, the Eagles were 2 of 11 on third down. Like, it was ugly. We were just not generating anything. The boo birds were coming out. People were booing early in the third when we weren't getting anything going. It just felt like the offensive game plan needed a lot of work, and that's something that's going to be talked about this week. Will the offense be able to elevate itself in time to make a deep playoff run, or are they going to flounder and cost the Eagles a game? So that's going to be I think the point of conversation, but I'm confident in this team. They've done it before. Jalen Hurts hasn't played in a month, and I think given that he found a rhythm later in the game and was able to make big plays to extend some of these drives to keep things going, and I think it's important to take some context into it, because we can't just assume that this offense was going to light up an extremely efficient defense when your quarterback's been out for a month. So I think for a good first game, Jalen Hurts didn't turn the ball over, finished with 2 touchdowns, and I think that moving forward, they're going to have a better game plan. Their defenses that they're going to be playing, next week, the Vikings have a good defense, but I don't think it's as balanced as this Packers defense. So it'll be interesting to see if we play them or if we play the Rams, who we line up with. I'm really excited to see. But the Monday night should be a fun game. It's going to be an emotional game, so I'm excited to see what happens there. So let's talk about some game balls. I only have one overall game ball to give, and that's to the defense, because again, you forced 4 turnovers, and Zach Bond got an interception. Quinyon Mitchell got his first career interception in a playoff game, which is huge. So shout out to him for finally being able to get one to close out the game. And And again, Nolan Smith did a really good job. Jalen Carter did a good job blowing up plays. Darius Slay got a sick interception where he was running stride for stride. Um, and just they were able to pressure Love all day. Love did not have a good game. They were sloppy with that when their backup guard ended up going into the game. They had to switch him out because he was getting abused and having too many penalties. Uh, it was just a rough game for Green Bay. It sucks that that's how their season ended because that was such a good season for them. 11-6 is a good season for most teams most of the time, and it's tough when you have to when other teams around you have even better seasons, and it just shows that it just shows how lucky you need to be in the NFL. When you have 7 guys go out in this game, it's just tough to fight. It's an uphill battle, especially when you're on the road in a hostile environment and key players are just going down left and right. So I commend the Packers for just giving it their all. Jordan Love, you saw at the end he got dinged up, stuck with it, tried to play out the rest of the game, did as much as he could. So the Packers gave us as much of a fight as they could. Josh Jacobs was trying to will them back into this game, but this defense was just able to impose their will. So shout out to the defense. Vic Fangio coached a masterclass. But when we talk about some of the negatives, the offense needs to be better. Plain and simple. I think that's the main takeaway. I mean, Saquon finished 25 carries, 119 yards. He was averaging 4.8 yards a carry. He could have broken off a huge run, sealed the deal. With a bunch of green grass in front of him with about a minute to go, but he slid once he knew he got the first down, and then that closed out the game. And people asked him about it after the game, and he said, it's situational. It's doing the right things. He's like, what if I had went for it for the touchdown? What if I pulled a hammy, or what if somebody else got hurt running after me? We don't want to make that kind of risk. He's like, you want to slide, smile, and move on to the next round. So it's good that Saquon was focused on the goal. Obviously, you want him to break it, but the goal is to win the game, move on, and advance, and we did just that. So this was a good win. 22-10 is a good win at home, and we're going to be able to host another playoff game. And I'm excited to see who we match up with. But this is kind of shaping up exactly the way you were hoping for if you're an Eagles fan. I think a lot of people were thinking maybe we wouldn't want to play the Bucs. Maybe that's just me, but I feel really good about whoever we match up with this week as we prepare to just take one step at a time to get to the NFC title game. And who knows, maybe Washington pulls off some magic and we're hosting another game for the NFC Championship game, which would be really cool, highly unlikely, but really cool. So I'm excited for whatever comes our way this week. But this was a good week. There's not much to talk about outside of the fact that the offense needs to play better, but I believe that they will, and we're definitely going to break that down more going into the week. Now that these guys have gotten a game under, Jalen's gotten his first game in a month under a belt. I think he's gotten back into the feel of things. He made some really good plays in this game to really get when it mattered the most. I think that's the important part. I think Jalen, struggled at times, but when we needed a crucial third down, especially the one to Dallas Goedert, we were able to get that. Jalen Hurts made some plays with his legs. I think overall, again, just taking care of the ball and relying on this defense and relying on Saquon is going to get the job done in these early stages while Jalen really finds a rhythm. And I know when it comes down to it, if he needs to make a big play, I know Jalen will. So I'm excited for what this team has in store for us. And when we look at the injury front, a couple guys were in and out of this game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side, Saquon kind of got dinged up for a second, but he came back in. I'm sure it was just a stinger. But Nakobe Dean was the guy to look out for on the defense. He went out early in the third. He blew up his screenplay, made a good tackle, but then he couldn't get up. He said, he's like, I can't get back up. He needed help. So it was a knee injury. I don't know how serious it is. He is our green dot. He's our middle linebacker who calls the plays, or Vic Fangio relays the plays to him. So losing him is a big deal. He's had such a spectacular season alongside Zach Bond. So it's kind of hard to, you don't want to lose a player like that. And Oren Burks did an admirable job filling in. And I'm sure if he has to come in next week with a week of practice, it's going to look a little cleaner. But I do think even though this team has shown that even when guys go out, the next man up actually is very capable of taking care of the job. So, Reed Blankenship went in and out of this game. CJ Gardner-Johnson went out for a play. Darius Slay was out for a little bit. He had to go back to the locker room, came back out. So those are going to be injuries to monitor. But that's been something that's been happening with this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball throughout the years. Guys have been coming in. Another guy plays a few snaps and then they come right back. So hopefully it's just, the playoff physicality. And then getting that extra day of rest, not having to playing on Sunday versus having to play on Saturday, I think is going to be a huge deal, make a big difference for some of these guys as they actually get to rest today, Monday or Tuesday after the game before prepping for next week. So, we're going to see what happens. I'm really excited, but I think I'm going to cut it off here because we're going to find out who we end up playing, and Ben and I are going to break down what we liked from this weekend and talk some Kings as they're streaking. Like, things are going good right now in 2025. So hopefully, the Eagles will get a favorable matchup for round 2, and we keep hunting. It's time to hunt. We've been doing a good job, so we sealed the deal. It was ugly, but we got the win, so that's all that matters. So this was the post-game pod for the Philadelphia Eagles playoff edition on the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Please give us a like, subscribe, rate, follow, review the show. All of our social medias are down in the description below, so please feel free to check us out on any of those platforms. We really appreciate all the love and support. I am Marcos Conan Negron. We are moving on to round 2, so I will talk to you guys during the week about this. We love you guys. Peace. Fly, Eagles, fly.